To pause the conference, press 8. To resume the conference, press 8 again. Or to fast forward the conference 30 seconds, press 9. At the tone, please leave your first and last name followed by the spelling and your company.
Begin recording your message at the tone. When you have finished, press any key to continue.
Welcome, and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. During the question-and-answer session, if you'd like to ask a question, please press star 1 on your touch-tone phone. Today's call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn the meeting over to Mr. Trent Parado. Thank you. You may begin.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm Trent Parado, Public Affairs Officer at NASA headquarters in Washington. I'd like to welcome you to today's media telecon to discuss the return of the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft from the International Space Station and its complement of scientific research aboard. We'll have 4 speakers joining us today. Each will give remarks, and then we'll open the phone lines for questions and answers. Today's speakers are NASA Administrator Charles Bolden, Elon Musk, Chief Designer and CEO of SpaceX, Gwen Shotwell, President and COO of SpaceX, and Julie Robinson, NASA's International Space Station Space Station Program Scientist. And with that, we'll begin, and I'll hand the discussion off to NASA Administrator Charles Bolden. Charlie?
Thank you very much, Trent, and thanks to all of you for joining us on today's teleconference as we welcome back and congratulate the SpaceX team on the recovery of Dragon. I'm really excited to be joined here today by Elon Musk and Gwen Shotwell, the CEO and President, respectively, at SpaceX, as well as by our NASA International Space Station Chief Scientist, Julie Robinson. They each are going to talk to you a little bit more about specifics of the mission from their perspective, but let me say a couple of words first. From our perspective here at NASA, we're really pleased that working together, the SpaceX and NASA teams were able to ensure Dragon successfully rendezvoused and then was birthed to the International Space Station. This past Tuesday, Dragon returned with a cargo bay full of critical science experiments and hardware. The reason I'm with you today is to remind all of you of the importance of our commercial cargo program and how it's critical to our human spaceflight program at NASA. I also want to remind all that we have a second commercial cargo program partner, Orbital Sciences Corporation of Dulles, Virginia, who is scheduled for their first test flight of their Antares launch vehicle, the mass simulator of their Cygnus cargo module, next month. Our ability to deliver and return supplies and science experiments like those that Julie Robinson is going to talk about a little bit later in this call is critical to the work the Expedition 35 and 36 crew is doing on the International Space Station, and even more so as NASA charts a course to send humans to new destinations. Later this afternoon, NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, Soyuz and Expedition 36 Commander Pavel Vinogradov, and Alexander Misurkin will launch to space and dock with the International Space Station in an unprecedented 6 hours. With that, I'll turn the call back over to Trent to introduce the rest of our speakers.
Thank you, Charlie. So now we'll go to SpaceX, and we'll begin with Gwen Shotwell. Gwen?
Thanks so much. I'm obviously very pleased to be here this morning and to report that the most recent Dragon mission was an enormous success for the SpaceX and NASA partnership. We've now completed 3 successful missions of launching, berthing, transferring cargo, and returning back to Earth in 10 months. I'm pretty sure that's certainly a record, and I'm obviously very proud of that. I want to do just a very quick summary of the first flight elements of this CRS-2 mission. This was the first robotic operation in the Dragon trunk. We did carry up grapple bars for NASA to facilitate ongoing ISS improvements and upgrades. This was the first time that SpaceX leveraged the re-rendezvous planning, which was critical to our getting to station effectively this time. This was also the longest mission duration to date. We were berthed to the ISS for 23 days. CRS-1 or SpaceX-1 was berthed for 18 days by comparison. We had a number of technology demonstrations on the vehicle, and we can go through that a bit later. We did bring Dragon back to port in Long Beach yesterday evening at about 7 p.m., and all cargo remained powered at all times, and NASA has received the time-sensitive or critical cargo as of last night. So it was just an enormous success, this mission. To highlight the amount of cargo, we carried up 1,493 pounds of pressurized cargo and packaging. and 822 pounds of unpressurized cargo. Apologize, 1,268 pounds of pressurized cargo and 822 pounds of unpressurized cargo. And the return, we brought back 3,256 pounds of cargo, which was 200 more than we had originally planned for this mission. So I'm pleased that the SpaceX and NASA team executed this mission and that it was as resounding of a success that it was. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Gwen. And next we'll go to SpaceX's Elon Musk. Elon.
Thanks. Well, I think I'll just talk a little bit about the anomaly that we experienced. So we did have an issue with the Dragon spacecraft briefly on the way to the space station. The rocket performed very well, performed flawlessly as far as we could tell. But we did have a slight issue with the propellant check valves, which we were able to fix within about 4 or 5 hours, and then get to the space station about a day later. And there were no further issues after that. So I think we understand the root cause of that and have addressed that in future vehicles, and so we don't expect to see that issue again. I think I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now turn the call over to Johnson Space Center and Julie Robinson. Julie.
Good day, everybody. You know, the U.S. and international scientific community the SpaceX flights are so important to our use of the International Station. We have a large portfolio, over 200 investigations active on the ISS at any one time, and those have been selected for a variety of reasons, from enabling scientific discoveries to directly finding benefits of the research back here on Earth to enabling future exploration missions beyond Earth orbit. And some of the cargo, I wanted to highlight just a few examples of some of the cargo coming back so you could understand how important this work is for the ongoing research on the space station and really for life back here on Earth, too. In the area of human research, we do studies to understand both how astronauts respond to the Earth environment, but also then to leverage those studies and improve health on Earth. We have about 300 tubes of blood and other biological samples coming home, and this time they're primarily supporting our studies of the interaction between nutrition and bone loss. And that's been an area where we've made some pretty significant advances in how we prepare crews and help them be healthy on the space station, and those advances are really causing people to rethink a little bit the way that we treat osteoporosis back here on Earth as well. In the physical sciences, we have one experiment I wanted to call out called the coarsening solid-liquid mixtures experiment. This is the first time we've done something really time-sensitive with SpaceX, where we actually launched the samples on this flight, took them over into the ISS, did a bunch of research on them, and finished that research by the skin of our teeth, put them back on, and brought the samples home. And this experiment is looking at alloy mixtures of lead and tin. So these are very soft alloys, and that's why we had to bring them home quickly. The structure of those alloys as we make them in orbit has a tree-like structure, which helps us control its strength and all of its physical properties. And so these are really important studies that lead into American manufacturing technologies. In the life sciences, we had a series of experiments that are focused on plant development, and in particular, how plants understand which way to grow and what the molecular signals are of that. That's really important work for understanding plant biology and improving crops. And then, of course, there are also education, commercial activities, and a variety of other research uses that are supported by the flight. We're really excited to have all those samples safe on the ground, already being distributed to the researchers that are going to be using them, and then we're excited for those researchers to roll up their sleeves and get the rest of the lab work done. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Julie. Okay, now we'll move on to the question and answer session. As a reminder, you can signal the operator if you have a question by pushing the *1 keys on your telephone. And when possible, please direct your question to a specific speaker to help us eliminate confusion. And with that, I'll hand it off to the operator, Lisa.
Thank you. At this time, we do have a question from Dan Leon. Once again, if you do have a question, press *1. And Dan, your line is now open.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having the call. I have schedule questions. Looking forward, first of all, when's the first is going to be a question about NASA business, and then I have a follow-up that relates to launches for your commercial customers, a SpaceX question. When's the next CRS launch? I guess I'll pause there. When's the next one on the slate for right now?
Well, this is Charlie Bolden, and I think the appropriate person to answer that is either Gwen or Elon, since the next CRS launch, unless you're talking about Orbital Sciences has their first test launch mid-April, mid to late April. So that's next month. And then it's their hope that they will launch their demo mission in the summertime, which will make them able to fly their first for-profit mission in the fall. I'll let Elon or Gwen tell you when they expect that SpaceX 3 will launch.
Yeah, we are currently scheduled to launch late this fall with CRS-3. There's a number of upgrades to that particular Dragon configuration, which is going to give NASA even more of the critical types of cargo that they're looking to both bring up and bring back.
Yeah, it's actually also worth noting that it will be with the new version of Falcon 9, which is some fairly significant upgrades on the vehicle side. That's both to improve performance and to improve reliability. So it's capable of actually really maximizing the payload of Dragon. So we can as much as you can basically pack in Dragon, we can send up. So it could potentially raise the useful payload of Dragon by several tons. And then this is also the version of Falcon 9 where we will attempt to recover the first stage. Although, as I've said before, I think it's going to take us several flights before we are successful in that. So I'm not sure it'll be this flight where we are successful, but that is our aspiration, and that is one of the key design goals of the new version of Falcon 9.
To follow up regarding Falcon 9 1.1, I understand that fairing tests are soon to commence or maybe already have at Plumbrook. Can you give us an update on the schedule for the fairing tests? And if they've started, when will they wrap up?
Sure. Well, this is obviously going a little off topic on the CRS flight, but I'll just spend one minute on it. And I'd like to say thanks to the folks at NASA Glenn who operate Plumbrook for helping us out here. So that their assistance is much appreciated. And it's an awesome facility. If you've seen pictures of it, it's really epic, super cool. So we're just assembling the fairing right now to do the vacuum separation tests, which are quite exciting tests because this is a giant fairing, and we'll be releasing information probably in the next few weeks about how those tests go. There are tests, so things could definitely go wrong, but yeah, I just wanted to give a special thanks to the NASA Glenn folks. So.
Thank you. And our next question comes from Peter King. I think your line is open.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon. It's Peter King at CBS Radio News, and I've got just a couple quick questions here. For Administrator Bolden, General Bolden, are you optimistic for the orbital sciences launches to happen on time, or at least as the current timetable is, given all the delays?
Yes.
Okay. And for Mr. Musk or Ms. Shotwell, people are always asking me about when we're going to have Americans flying a spacecraft from the Kennedy Space Center, and I'm just wondering, American astronauts flying a spacecraft again from the Kennedy Space Center, and I'm wondering if you can give us a progress report on how the program is going for adapting the Dragon for human space flight, and if we're still looking at possibly 2015.
Sure. Well, I'll make some brief comments, and then maybe Charlie can share the perspective of NASA on how things are going. Things seem to be going pretty well. We're passing our milestones and making, I think, good progress. And we're hoping to do the pad abort tests fairly soon. Potentially later this year. That's going to be an exciting test, and we're hoping to unveil actually what Dragon version 2 looks like also later this year, and work with NASA on that unveiling. But I think it's coming along really well. As with the cargo program, the partnership with NASA from our perspective is going really well, and it's just a really great partnership. So.
And I think the only thing I would add is that we're very hopeful that all of the contractors so far, all of our partners, are making very good progress, meeting all of their milestones under the program that we call CCI-CAP, which just to kind of remind everybody, we're working under Space Act agreements right now, which gives them maximum flexibility in the design and development of their vehicles. All three of the partners, Boeing, SpaceX, and Sierra Nevada, are presently involved in some contract activity in helping us to develop final requirements and specifications for design requirements and specifications for the vehicles, as well as demonstrating to us how they expect to be able to verify their qualifications and how they intend to be able to show us that they meet the requirements that are laid out. We're probably, we're the long pole in the tent there. We actually hope to be able to put a request for proposal on the street next spring, and that would result in a selection or a down selection, depending on how Congress treats us with the budget. We could have a selection in the following fall. So that's our hope right now. I will say that each of the contractors has their own internal date to which they're working for their first human-rated flights, but we're still marching along on our date, on our 2017 initial flight for a crewed vehicle.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Pat Ho. Thank you. Your line is open.
Thanks. I was going to ask about the next Dragon launch that already got answered.
Our next question comes from Ken Kramer. Thank you. Your line is open. Ken, your line is open. Please.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Ken Kramer, Spaceflight Magazine. Thank you. For Elon Musk, a question, please. If you could go into a little bit more detail about exactly what was the cause of the problem right after launch. Was it hardware or software? And can you talk a little bit about how you solved this problem? Thank you.
Sure. So the problem was a very tiny change to a check valve that served the oxidizer tanks on Dragon, and so three of the check valves were actually different from the prior check valves that had flown in a very, very tiny way. It's difficult to describe verbally. You have to really see a diagram. And because of that tiny change, they got stuck. And so what we were able to do was write some new software kind of in real time, and then upload that to Dragon, where we built pressure upstream of the check valve, and then released that pressure and kind of gave it kind of a kick, if you will. It's called like the spacecraft equivalent of the Heimlich maneuver, and that basically got the valves unstuck. And once they got unstuck, they worked really well. So yeah, it was definitely a worrying time, and we also had some difficulty communicating with the spacecraft because it was drifting, kind of in free drift in orbit, and so we were able to work also with the Air Force and get higher intensity dishes or more powerful dishes to communicate with the spacecraft and upload the software, do that maneuver, sort of pressure slam maneuver, and get things unstuck, and from then on it worked really well.
Thanks. If I could follow up with a question to Charlie Bolden, can you talk a little bit about the effects of the sequester and on commercial crew? Is this going to cause delays if this is not resolved? Thanks.
I will give you a very brief response because I don't want to detract from our time to be able to talk about this incredibly successful mission with Dragon, except to say that as we projected, sequester has a potentially harmful impact on the progress of our commercial crew development program, and that is mainly in that it reduces the amount of money that's available for us pass through to our partners in the development of their vehicles. So far, we don't see any significant impact the rest of this fiscal year, but our projection is that if we're not able to get out of this condition, this sequester condition, it may slow down our progress on commercial crew, and that's my big concern. But needless to say, it had no impact on this mission. Dragon, as Gwen and Elon have said, was successfully returned with a cargo bay full of critical science experiments that I'm certain if you'd ask her, Julie would love to talk about, because I love hearing about it. And just a very successful flight and a good step toward toward their third flight.
Our next question comes from Mark Carreau. I think your line is open.
Thank you, Mark Carreau for Aviation Week and Space Technology. And I believe I have two questions for Elon Musk. Just to cycle back briefly on the check valve issue. So what will be the fix for the next mission? Can you stay with the new part design and a software change, or will you go back to the older check valve part? And second, if you could kind of walk through the booster recovery strategy that you envision, at least for the next flight, if you can get everything lined up to do that.
So the software that we uploaded was really just to kind of get the valves unstuck. So we don't need any software changes in the future, but we really just need to fix this tiny little issue with the valve. And essentially, it's reverting it to what it was, and it's really such a subtle change. And there was little, but we've instituted some checks to just verify that this can't happen again. So I wouldn't anticipate this to be an issue ever again. It's and as I said, it was a momentary interruption, but not something that was obviously serious in the end. With respect to the recovery, the initial recovery attempts will be from a water landing, so that the first stage booster will, after separation, the first stage will continue in a ballistic arc and execute a velocity reduction burn before hitting the atmosphere, just to lessen the impact, and then right before sort of splashdown of the stage, it's going to light the engine again. So there'll be two burns after stage separation if things go well. But I really want to emphasize that we don't expect success in the first several attempts, and then hopefully next year with a lot more experience and data, we should be able to return the first stage to the launch site, deploy the landing legs, and do a propulsive landing on land back at the launch site. So this year it's about just hopefully recovering the first stage at all from an ocean landing, and then next year it'll be the boost back return to launch site with the landing gear deployed. That's our aspiration.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, looks like we have about 3 questions queued up, and we ought to have just enough time to get through all of those. So we'll go ahead and take those and then start to draw to a close. On to you, Lisa.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Irene Klotz. Thank you. Your line is open.
Thanks very much. I have 2 questions. First, for Elon, is there a flight yet that you've identified that you would attempt the flyback boosters?
Sorry, you mean the return to launch site?
Right.
Not a specific flight, but it would be sometime, I'm guessing, around the middle of next year.
Okay, thanks. And for Charlie, the sequestration of funds that Congress approved, I guess, last week, are you saying that will not have any impact on funding for commercial crew and commercial cargo through September 30th of this year? And if so, where do you expect to take that? I think it was about $1 billion of cuts.
Yeah, Irene, because we actually ended up at a level that we expected, or even better than we were under the CR, we don't see an impact for the rest of 2013. However, there are milestones in commercial crew. Elon and Gwen may even be able to identify some, because we're already talking to our partners about delays in milestones that may be necessary if we don't get the funding we want, or even mods to the CRS contract if the funding does not go the way we want. If sequestration persists, it's a 10-year. I hate to break this news to you, but I have to remind people, sequestration is a 10-year plan that was not supposed to be executed. So it would have downstream adverse impact on everything we do. But for this year, we're in good shape in terms of commercial cargo and continuing our march toward a 2017 initial launch for commercial crew.
Thank you. And our next question comes from Todd Helverson. Thank you. Your line is open.
Thanks very much. I have one for Charlie and then a follow for Elon. Charlie, I was just wondering if you could give us your impressions of the on-orbit save that SpaceX was actually able to pull off during the early parts of the on-orbit mission.
Todd, hopefully this won't sound strange to anybody. I've shared this with Elon and Gwen. You may remember on the first flight, we got within, I guess about 30, 40 meters of station and had some anomalies with the navigation system where they have multiple LiDAR, and I don't want to get into too much technical stuff because I don't know it, but they had some spurious readings on the LiDAR Ranger, and they made the decision, the conscious decision working with the team in Houston to back out, let things settle down, and then come back in and close. And that was something that our folk had seen before, had a lot of experience with, but chose the team, Holly Ridings and the others down in Houston said, this is SpaceX's mission, SpaceX's vehicle. We're confident that they know what they're doing, and they backed out and came back in. And I told Elon and Gwen after that flight, I said, at that moment, we were no longer two teams. We were no longer SpaceX and NASA. We were America's team, and I could not have been prouder. I would say the same thing. I was privileged to be with Elon out in the control center in Hawthorne, and Bill Gerstenmaier and Lori were down with Gwen at the Cape when they recognized the anomaly with the propulsion system, and it was incredible to watch, their young, energetic team work through this issue, and that's fully what we expected they would do, and they came through with flying colors. So I think every time we fly, and every time we have an opportunity to work through adversity, we're going to become even better than we are today, and we're pretty good as a team.
Yeah. I really exactly. I think those are the exact sentiments that I would express as well. I think maybe a lot of people out there don't appreciate that NASA and SpaceX are really closely integrated, like day to day. It's not like some sort of hands-off thing. It's really a joint effort, and everything. And NASA knows everything that we're doing, and we know at least the stuff as it pertains to us, what NASA's doing. We have we have high-speed data links between Johnson Space Center and the Hawthorne, California headquarters of SpaceX. We have NASA personnel. In fact, Charlie was with me in mission control on this last mission, and I must say it's great to work with NASA. In fact, on this last mission, NASA was so cool. I mean, what I mean is like completely unruffled. I was far more anxious than NASA was. So I was like, we have one cool customer. So.
Thanks. And real quick for Elon, on the check valve problem, you characterized it as a tiny issue. I'm wondering if that is a manufacturing problem or a configuration problem. And just to follow up an earlier question, I'm wondering if you could kind of give us an idea of how the upgraded Falcon 9 is different from what you're flying right now. I think it'll be the introduction of the Merlin 1D, and I wondered if there were other upgrades we should know about.
Yeah, so it was not a manufacturing tolerance issue. It was actually a tiny design revision change from a supplier that the supplier made some mistakes there, and then we didn't catch those mistakes. So there's this sort of dual responsibility. We do actually run the system through pressurization checks, but we didn't previously run them through the high pressure check. So we do a low pressure functionality check, but not a high pressure functionality check. And now we've changed the procedure to do a high pressure functionality check, and obviously both us and the supplier are now extremely sensitive to even the tiny nuanced changes that we're talking about here. So the thing that was sort of interesting is that the check valve didn't get stuck at if you did these low pressure functionality checks, and we didn't expect there to be any difference at the high pressure levels. So that was clearly a mistake. But we'll make sure we don't repeat that in the future, and this is definitely a learning process. And literally, if you looked at the valve, you'd have to put a magnifying glass even to see the difference. And then on the rocket side, the next version of Falcon 9 is certainly a meaningful upgrade, and it's a vehicle that has about 60 to 70% more capability than the current version or the old version of Falcon 9. So we've really improved the structural efficiency, engine efficiency. The thrust is about 60% greater, and we've also improved the redundancy on the vehicle. So we're now moving to a full kind of triple redundant system on the Falcon 9, and also improving the engine-to-engine protection on the first stage and the engine-to-stage protection. So as people know, we had an engine go out on us in Flight 4 of Falcon 9. The mission completed successfully, but we had an engine go out on us, proving that we can lose an engine and complete the mission, which is what we always said we can do. But looking at taking that as a lesson and saying, okay, well, how can we even improve the engine protection cell going into the next version of Falcon 9? We've made it even more robust, and the increased capability of the rocket would mean that you could actually lose an engine right after liftoff and still complete the mission, still have enough capability to complete the mission. So I think that there's a number of improvements across the board in the structures, avionics, engines, and then, as I said, this version is really designed to be able to have the first stage come back, boost back to the launch site, deploy landing gear, and actually land propulsively. But it'll take at least a year, I think, for us to get that right. And there'll be many losses of stage between now and then.
Just to add to what Elon just said, these performance changes are more than just rocket design. They really translate into amazing contributions for our scientific community. So we've been working great with SpaceX as a team to take all of the recommendations that have come to us from the National Academies of Science, for example. SpaceX 3 will have more capacity for bringing up powered cargo, which lets us bring up more freezers, living samples, all of those things that really enable a broad research program. And then even the landing improvements that he's talking about also then become huge enablers for scientific research on the station.
Yeah, sorry, I should also mention that Dragon version 2, so there are upgrades to the rocket, which are more proximate, and then there are some minor upgrades to Dragon, which Gwen was referring to, and then there's Dragon version 2, which will be a substantial upgrade. And that version of Dragon will be capable of landing propulsively on land. So that's going to be really quite a significant upgrade. So the water landings in the long term should be a thing of the past, and allow us to do missions with a more sort of rapid tempo, and without having to marshal a bunch of ships.
Okay, I think we can go ahead and take the last question.
Yes, thank you. Our last question comes from Miriam Kramer. Thank you. Your line is open.
Hi, this is Miriam Kramer with Space.com. I actually would like to follow up on Dragon version 2 for Elon. So if you would mind going into just a little bit more detail about these upgrades that you made and sort of what you're doing to make it possible to land propulsively on the ground as opposed to a water landing.
Yeah, I don't want to jump the gun too much on sort of a future unveiling. And we want to work with NASA on that unveiling, because I think it would be kind of a fun thing for the public to see the new version as kind of up close, because it is quite a significant upgrade. There are very powerful thruster pods, side-mounted thruster pods on the new version of Dragon, and quite big windows as well for astronauts to see out. There are also land sort of legs that pop out at bottom, so it looks like a kind of a real alien spaceship, if you will. We started off landing in water because that was kind of the easiest thing to do. and we didn't really know what we were doing, honestly, at the beginning. I think we're getting better, but we don't want to take any unnecessary risks. But now we want to really try to push the envelope and see if we can take the technology to where it hasn't been before.
Great, thanks. And just to follow up, when are you thinking of unveiling?
Well, hopefully later this year. We're to figure out the exact timing, but hopefully later this year.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Okay, thanks very much. Before we draw to a close, I just wanted to check quickly with our speakers if they didn't have any final remarks. I think we're good here at NASA headquarters, so I'll offer the floor to SpaceX for any final comments. Gwen or Elon?
Yeah, I'd like to bring this kind of back home and thank all our SpaceXers here for the extraordinary work and effort that they've put into this successful mission. Highlight again that this was the third successful flight of this vehicle to and from the International Space Station. Want to also thank NASA both as a partner as well as a customer. The relationship has been extraordinary for us, and certainly don't want them to forget our appreciation there. Wanted to thank our additional mission partners. The Air Force was both the range, as usual, was extraordinary, but we got that additional help to help get Dragon to station, and all the folks that supported that. I just wanted to make sure we know what they did, and we greatly appreciate it. FAA has worked well with us, and we appreciate their continued support as we continue to develop extraordinary commercial spaceflight capability. FCC was a strong partner as well, and we look forward to more missions with this particular team. Also appreciate actually the public and all the folks in the media who are clearly so engaged with what we're doing. The team here definitely appreciates all the attention. That's all I had.
Thanks very much, Gwen. And we'll end with science and Julie Robinson. Julie?
Thanks, Trent. I just wanted to close the call by pointing out there's just a real consolidation here between commercial spaceflight being enabled, as you see in these missions, and the way that we're using ISS both as a national laboratory for commercial research as well as to advance science. And what we see is NASA exploration activities, commercial space exploration development, and scientific research all go hand in hand, but each one of them brings something really strong back to our economy. And so as we have more benefits of our research developing, and we already have great examples of that so far, we're seeing that synergy really make the economy stronger. Thanks.
Channing, thank you. That's going to do it for today's Media Telecon. I'd just like to thank the speakers again for their time today. More information about this mission and the International Space Station can be found at nasa.gov/station. And for more information about SpaceX, you can visit spacex.com. Just a quick reminder that tonight, NASA TV coverage begins at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time for the 4:43 p.m. launch of the next 3 crew members headed to the orbiting laboratory of the International Space Station. With that, thank you again for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you. That does conclude today's conference. Thank you for your participation, and you may disconnect.
Thank you for calling the Digital Replay Service.